list, any plans for the rest of the day, and just come fully present here. We are open and receptive, Lord, to your spirit, alive, active, and quickened in each of us right now. We give thanks that we hear what will help us and support us and enhance our experience of this day and our lives and each other. We go into this class then with a sense of enthusiasm, excitement, and expectancy. And we thank you, God, for the blessings of this time together. And we all say amen.
Amen.
All right. Everybody online. Kathy?
Yes?
Kathy, would you please start the video for us?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We can't see it.
Oh, let me stop it then. Sorry.
Well, we all need a reason to wake up.
We can't see it, Kathy.
Just a minute. Let me do that. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to find my seat. I have too many things on here. Screen share. Okay. You can see it now?
No, there's nothing happening. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Can't hear it though. Start it.
All right.
That's the spirit.
There we go.
That's
I know
what
I
we
came here.
we really want to start
You know what
there.
the secret is? She's
We have
loading
to get
power in
past
the
the
right
ads
way.
now.
Whereas this guy, he's just trying to swing like he did when he was young. It's frustrating. But as we get older, we lose our distance because our body just doesn't have the strength and flexibility that it used to.
This is not
But
the-
what most guys don't realize is that there are a few drills you can do
Kathy, what's going on here?
to make sure you load power in the
YouTube
right way.
always forces you to
one
watch an ad or
of three
two,
places.
depending on the length. And
Because we all
so
have untapped yardage in our
YouTube is
drive.
forcing us
And I
to
want to show
watch
you
the
how to
ad.
access yours
see,
in
the
a free
day bef-
training video that I've put together. So click the link and see how this simple technique could add 20 to
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
What would you think about
This isn't it though, is it?
the day before?
No. Let me do,
No, this is not it.
all right,
This
let
is
me
not
look.
it.
If you could look
It
into
was
the
on it and
future
then it moved. Let
and
me
predict that
Not
with
it.
certainty.
end of life.
Okay, let's just take some deep breaths.
Sharon,
And we have some people that I don't.
For me, it just took 11,000 volts. I know you're too polite.
I'm going back.
Need some volume.
Okay, I'll be right there.
Well, we all need a reason to wake up. For me, it just took 11,000 volts. I know you're too polite to ask, so I will tell you. One night, sophomore year of college, just back from Thanksgiving holiday, a few of my friends and I were horsing around. We decided to climb atop a parked commuter train. It's just sitting there with the wires that run overhead. Somehow that seemed like a great idea at the time. We'd certainly done stupider things. I scurried up the ladder on the back, and when I stood up, the electrical current entered my arm, blew down and out my feet, and that was that. Would you believe that watch still works? Takes a licking. My father wears it now in solidarity. That night began my formal relationship with death, my death. And it also began my long run as a patient. It's a good word. It means one who suffers. I guess we're all patients. Now, the American healthcare system has more than its fair share of dysfunction to match its brilliance, to be sure. I'm a physician now, a hospice and palliative medicine doc, so I've seen care from both sides. And believe me, most everyone who goes into healthcare really means well. I mean, truly. But we who work in it are also unwitting agents for a system that too often does not serve. Why? Well, there's actually a pretty easy answer to that question, and explains a lot. Because healthcare was designed with diseases, not people, at its center. Which is to say, of course, it was badly designed. And nowhere are the effects of bad design more heartbreaking or the opportunity for good design more compelling than at the end of life, where things are so distilled and concentrated. There's no do-overs. My purpose today is to reach out across disciplines and invite design thinking into this big conversation. That is, to bring intention and creativity to the experience of dying. We have a monumental opportunity in front of us before a universal, one of the few universal issues as individuals as well as a civil society, to rethink and redesign how it is we die. So let's begin at the end. For most people, the scariest thing about death isn't being dead, it's dying, suffering. It's a key distinction. And to get underneath this, it can be very helpful to tease out suffering which is necessary, as it is, from suffering we can change. The former is a natural, essential part of life, part of the deal. And to this, we are called to make space, adjust, grow. It can be really good to realize forces larger than ourselves, to bring proportionality, like a cosmic right-sizing. After my limbs were gone, that loss, for example, became fact, fixed, necessarily part of my life. And I learned I could no more reject this fact than reject myself. Took me a while, but I learned it eventually. Now, another great thing about necessary suffering is that it is the very thing that unites caregiver and care receiver, human beings. This, we are finally realizing, is where healing happens. Yes, compassion, literally, as we learned yesterday, suffering together. Now, on the systems side, on the other hand, so much of the suffering is unnecessary, invented, serves no good purpose. But the good news is, since this brand of suffering is made up, well, we can change it. How we die is indeed something we can affect. Now, making the system sensitive to this fundamental distinction between necessary and unnecessary suffering gives us our first of three design cues for the day. After all, our role as caregivers, as people who care, is to relieve suffering, not add to the pile. True to the tenets of palliative care, I function as something of a reflective advocate as much as a prescribing physician. Quick aside, palliative care, very important field, but poorly understood. While it includes, it is not limited to end-of-life care. It is not limited to hospice. It's simply about comfort and living well at any stage. Okay, so please know that you don't have to be dying anytime soon to benefit from palliative care. Now, let me introduce you to Frank. Sort of makes this point. I've been seeing Frank now for years. He's living with advancing prostate cancer on top of longstanding HIV. We work on his bone pain and his fatigue, but most of the time we spend thinking out loud together about his life, really about our lives. In this way, Frank grieves. In this way, he keeps up with his losses as they roll in so that he's ready to take in the next moment. Loss is one thing, but regret quite another. So Frank has always been an adventurer. Looks like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting, and no fan of regret. So it wasn't surprising when he came into clinic one day saying he wanted to raft down the Colorado River. Was this a good idea? No. With all the risks to his safety and his health, some would say no, many did, but he went for it while he still could. And it was a glorious, marvelous trip. Freezing water, blistering dry heat, scorpions, snakes, wildlife howling off the flaming walls of the Grand Canyon. All the glorious side of the world beyond our control. Now, Frank's decision, while maybe dramatic, is exactly the kind so many of us would make if we only had the support to figure out what is best for ourselves over time. So much of what we're talking about today is a shift in perspective. After my accident, when I went back to college, I changed my major to art history. Studying visual art, I figured I'd learn something about how to see. A really potent lesson for a kid who couldn't change so much of what he was seeing. Perspective, that kind of alchemy we humans get to play with, turning anguish into a flower. Flash forward, now I work at an amazing place in San Francisco called the Zen Hospice Project, where we have a little ritual that helps with this shift in perspective. When one of our residents dies, the mortuary men come, and as we're wheeling the body out through the garden, heading for the gate, we pause. Anyone who wants, fellow residents, family, nurses, volunteers, the hearse drivers too now, share a story or a song or silence as we sprinkle the body with flower petals. It takes a few minutes. It's a sweet, simple parting image to usher in grief with warmth rather than repugnance. Contrast that with the typical experience in the hospital setting. Much like this, floodlit room lined with tubes and beeping machines and blinking lights that don't stop even when the patient's life has. Cleaning crew swoops in, the body's whisked away. It feels as though that person had never really existed. Well-intended, of course, in the name of sterility, but hospitals tend to assault our senses. And the most we might hope for within those walls is numbness. Anesthetic. Literally the opposite of aesthetic. I revere hospitals for what they can do. I am alive because of them. But we ask too much of our hospitals. They are places for acute trauma and treatable illness. They're no place to live and die. That's not what they were designed for. Now, mind you, I'm not giving up on the notion that our institutions can become more humane. Beauty can be found anywhere. I spent a few months in a burn unit at St. Barnabas Hospital in Livingston, New Jersey, where I got really great care at every turn, including good palliative care for my pain. And one night, it began to snow outside. I remember my nurses complaining about driving through it. And there was no window in my room, but it was great to just imagine it coming down all sticky. Next day, one of my nurses smuggled in a snowball for me. She brought it into the unit. I cannot tell you the rapture I felt holding it in my hand. The coldness dripping onto my burning skin, the miracle of it all, the fascination as I watched it melt and turn into water. In that moment, just being any part of this planet in this universe mattered more to me than whether I lived or died. That little snowball packed all the inspiration I needed to both try to live and be okay if I did not. In the hospital, that's a stolen moment. In my work over the years, I've known many people who were ready to go, ready to die. And not because they had found some final peace or transcendence, but because they were so repulsed by what their lives had become. In a word, cut off or ugly. There are already record numbers of us living with chronic and terminal illness and into ever older age. And we are nowhere near ready or prepared for this silver tsunami. We need an infrastructure dynamic enough to handle these seismic shifts in our population. Now is a time to create something new, something vital. I know we can because we have to. The alternative is just unacceptable. And the key ingredients are known: policy, education and training, systems, bricks and mortar. We have tons of input for designers of all stripes to work with. We know, for example, from research, what's most important to people who are closer to death: comfort, feeling unburdened, and unburdening to those they love, existential peace, and a sense of wonderment and spirituality. Over Zen Hospice's nearly 30 years, we've learned much more from our residents in subtle detail. Little things aren't so little. Take Jeanette. She finds it harder to breathe one day to the next due to ALS. Well, guess what? She wants to start smoking again. And French cigarettes, if you please. Not out of some self-destructive bent, but to feel her lungs filled while she has them. Priorities change. Or Kate. She just wants to know her dog Austin is lying at the foot of her bed, his cold muzzle against her dry skin. Instead of more chemotherapy coursing through her veins, she's done that. Sensuous aesthetic gratification, where in a moment, in an instant, we are rewarded for just being. So much of it comes down to loving our time by way of the senses, by way of the body, the very thing doing the living and the dying. Probably the most poignant room in a Zen Hospice guest house is our kitchen, which is a little strange when you realize that so many of our residents can eat very little, if anything at all, but we realize we are providing sustenance on several levels: smell, symbolic plane. Seriously, with all the heavy duty stuff happening under our roof, one of the most tried and true interventions we know of is to bake cookies. As long as we have our senses, even just one, we have at least the possibility of accessing what makes us feel human, connected. Imagine the ripples of this notion for the millions of people living and dying with dementia. Primal sensorial delights that say the things we don't have words for, impulses that make us stay present, no need for a past or a future. So, if teasing unnecessary suffering out of the system was our first design cue, then tending to dignity by way of the senses, by way of the body, the aesthetic realm is design cue number 2. Now, this gets us quickly to the third and final bit for today. Namely, we need to lift our sights, to set our sights on well-being. that life can become, and health care can become about making life more wonderful rather than just less horrible. Beneficence. Here, this gets right at the distinction between a disease-centered and a patient or human-centered model of care. And here is where caring becomes a creative, generative, even playful act. Play may sound like a funny word here, but it's also one of our highest forms of adaptation. Consider every major compulsory effort it takes to be human. The need for food is birth cuisine. The need for shelter has given rise to architecture. The need for cover, fashion, and for being subjected to the clock, well, we invented music. So, since dying is a necessary part of life, what might we create with this fact? By play, I am in no way suggesting that we take a light approach to dying or that we mandate any particular way of dying. There are mountains of sorrow that cannot move, and one way or another, we will all kneel there. Rather, I am asking we make space, physical, psychic room to allow life to play itself all the way out, so that rather than just getting out of the way, aging and dying can become a process of crescendo through to the end. We can't solve for death. I know some of you are working on this. Meanwhile, we can design towards it. Now, parts of me died early on, and that's something we can all say one way or another. I got to redesign my life around this fact, and I tell you, it has been a liberation to realize you can always find a shock of beauty or meaning in what life you have left. Like that snowball lasting for a perfect moment, all the while melting away. If we love such moments ferociously, then maybe we can learn to live well, not in spite of death, but because of it. Let death be what takes us, not lack of imagination. Thank you.
I wanted to have a pencil and paper with me so I could write down some of the things he was saying.
I want to show you how older golfers like us can unlock 20, 30 yards of extra distance in just one bucket of 40 practice balls, just by making a 30-second tweak to their feet, hips, or shoulders. You lose the distance as you age. But in this next video, you'll see how you can not only stop losing yards, but actually gain some too. And you'll find that you're gaining accuracy off.
Thank you. Okay, you can put up the study guide, but first, just take some deep breaths, close your eyes, and go inside and see what thoughts he shared might have captured your imagination, that you found appealing or helpful. Because you realize this video was not about death, right? It was about how to live life well. So none of us are in our 20s anymore, at least I don't think so. So I know where I am. I'm probably in the last quarter of my life, right? I've lived 3/4 of it. And so his message was, well, let's see what you thought. Sorry, I interrupted your silent time. Just pause for a moment and try to remember or reflect on what he said. And you online, same thing, just reflecting on what you heard B.J. Miller saying that really maybe touched your heart. I'm ready. I'm ready. Are you ready? Okay. So I'd like to hear from you, and when you share, would you share your name? Those of us, you guys online, those of us here have name tags out. I don't know if we can all read everyone's name tag. Linda, I love Linda's name tag. Look how big her name is. So let's start online. Anyone online, if you would share your name and a thought you had about that video. Unmute, remember to unmute if you want to share. So, okay, Sandy?
I think two things.
Sandy's talking.
Two things that I wrote down was dignity by way of the senses. And the other one was making space for life to play itself out.
Right.
Both those things really hit me.
So say it again.
Dignity by way of the senses and making space for life to play itself out. The dignity by way of the senses really hit me strongly, basically because everything goes through our body and we frequently try and heal things through our mind or our heart, and meditating or thinking things through or trying to fix something. And we forget that everything is lodged in the body and that we have to pay attention to how do we feel when someone says this? Do we constrict? Do we open? Does a certain experience make us feel full or depleted? And we forget to include our body. And until we include our body, I don't think we can fully experience life.
Thanks, Sandy. Howard?
I thought he had a very good handle on the end of life. He said a couple things that touched me. Number one is hospitals are not for living or dying. They're to solve problems, cure disease and trauma. So don't go there to die. That's been my experience anyway. The other, what was the other thing he said that touched me? I don't know. It'll come to me again someday. But I was impressed with his ability to understand death and present. Oh, the senses. The thing he said to me that I've experienced that I thought was very important. As long as we maintain one sense, we still have a touch into life. And most people don't realize that. You know, if you're, excuse me, if you're laying there.
Treat it like a
And,
business deal.
You've still got the one sense left. You will, the people sitting around you ought to be talking to you or holding your hand or doing something to reach that sense.
Explain that.
The reason I'm tearing up is once when I was in a hospital and I flatlined, I called the nurse in and I said, something's wrong here. As my senses slowly dissolved, the last thing that went away was the hearing. And I could hear the conversations going on.
Business deal.
Anyway, remember that.
Thanks, Howard. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else who's online want to share what they, a takeaway from that video? Betty?
Yeah. Again, two things. He said suffering unites human beings. And I think all too often, at least I think, well, I don't like to see people suffer and I try to get rid of it and make them feel better. And sometimes it's better just to be with them and their suffering and not always trying to make it go away. I'm a nurse, and so I think I have to heal people, but listening to their soul sometimes is more therapeutic. The other thing was the present, be in the present, no need for past or future. When I was caring for my husband going through Alzheimer's, it was a 10-year journey The last couple of years at the end, he was not very communicative, but every time I'd walk into the room, I'd say, "Hiya, handsome," and he would smile. So he knew what I was saying, and we would live in the present for that day. So that's good advice, everybody, for all occasions.
Great. Thanks, Betty. Thank you. Anybody else online? Okay, let me go to the folks here in the room then. Anybody here want to share? Yes, Carol.
I really like what he said about keeping up with losses as they come by. Because they stack up if you don't, and then they get to be overwhelming. And I think that, I mean, that's something I haven't really heard anyone say before, but it makes a lot of sense to me. And then I'll just tag along with what's already been said about being in the moment. When he said loving our time by way of our senses, to me, that's living in the moment. And that's something I'm really trying to do much more of instead of being in my head.
Great. Love time by appreciating and filling the senses. Love life, I should say, right? Love the time, loving life,
Loving life, loving our time, living. Through our
Great.
senses.
Who else? Anybody else? Okay, wow, it's pretty quiet in here, you guys.
Reverend Sharon, Ken's picture has a hand up.
Let's do that now. Ken and who's with Ken? I don't have a name. Ken? Unmute. Unmute yourself.
He's unmuted, but
Unmute.
he's not muted. They don't have a mic. Well.
We can't hear you because I guess you guys don't have a mic on your computer. They must though.
You have to
They don't have their mic
They
turned
don't have
on.
it turned on.
Turn on your
You
mic.
have to turn it on. You have to turn the mic on and turn the video on.
Can't hear you yet. Check for your mic. While
You
Ken-
can do chat.
Huh?
You can do chat and type it.
yeah, you can write something in the chat box. That's Cleopatra, everybody, my baby. Who cannot stand to be alone.
Can I just say a joke?
Yeah,
It was in Reader's Digest a few months ago, but it said, Zoom meetings are like seances. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
did you all hear that joke that Carol told? Oh, Carol's far away from the mic. She said, meetings?
Zoom meetings.
Zoom meetings are like a seance. Everyone is saying, can you see me? Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Next time we will get it.
Oh,
It says
okay.
it, everybody. I think somebody. Message, so maybe not. Ken said next time we will get it. Okay.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Great. Okay, anybody else here on that video? And your name is?
Diane, sorry, I don't have the name tag.
The quote I like to make, somebody can help me remember the end of it, was make life more wonderful, not, I put in my head painful. There was another word that he used.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great quote. I don't know if anybody else is dealing with new medical stuff, but I am. And so my mind is on that. And so that was a shift.
Great.
New stage, new wonderful things.
Great.
That was a great quote.
I think he was talking, maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, he was talking about suffering. And that there's suffering in life, although I don't choose to use the word suffering. I choose pain. There's heart pain and soul pain in life.
Reverend Sharon, I'm sorry, would you look at the mic when you talk because we're losing you?
Oh, well, okay. I was saying that BJ was talking about suffering. And he was saying that life has suffering in it. I said, I don't choose to use the word suffering when I think about that kind of life experience, like the loss of, in his case, the loss of 3 limbs. But it's the loss of someone we hold dear, it's the loss of a job, it's the loss of a friend. It could be the loss of anything. Rather than referring to it as suffering, I think of it as heart pain. And he was saying, let me just use the word suffering because he did. He was saying that yes, we all have suffering in life from loss of this and that. But what we can do is choose to look at the life that we have now and how might we make it wonderful, even in the midst of pain, even in the midst of loss, like he had to learn to do or chose to learn to do when he lost 3 limbs and he had decided, he had to choose, what will I make of my life now? Will I make it wonderful, or am I going to be a sufferer? Okay. Anything else from y'all on the video or what you heard in there? Like I said, I wish I had written things down, and a couple of you have spoken to it, but the importance of aesthetics to, in any present moment, feed our senses with beauty, aesthetics, like nature. Everything is flowering right now. It's just so beautiful. He talked about the aesthetic of a snowball. What the miracle of a snowball, and then the experience of watching it melt right in his hand, in his hot hand, his burning hand. So I wanted that to feed today, living without fear and without regrets. Living our best life now. Okay, any comments before I jump into something else? Hello there, Paul.
We're too old to be on time.
Stay after detention.
At any rate, it's been a while since I've heard this, but the thing that stuck with me is he says at one point there, and I'm paraphrasing, there are no limitations. There are only possibilities. So if you're thinking limitations, you got stinking thinking going on, and time to switch to possibilities. Paraphrase.
Yeah. Well, we get that choice moment to moment, don't we?
Yeah.
Am I going to name this experience a limit, or am I going to name this experience a possibility? I get to choose. We all get to, and this Sunday may be talking about a life of meaning. That's the bad news and the good news. We get to make our life mean what we want it to mean. No one else can make our life mean anything but us. We get that choice, and it's our responsibility, as human beings, and it's a great gift to be able to choose.
I just would like to add one thing. I agree with all what you were saying before, and this gentleman also, and there's another saying that goes along with that. Adversity is inevitable, suffering is optional. So it's all a choice.
Yeah. I had a teacher when I was studying for the ministry. I don't know if Billy, you had the privilege of having Ed Rabel as an instructor. You did?
Prior to ministerial school.
Oh,
Yeah,
prior?
Yeah.
So Ed Rabel, Reverend Ed Rabel, was an incredible metaphysician, but I never forgot that. I heard it before. I wasn't even in ministerial school. I was just at Unity Village taking classes. And Ed said something like you said, Betty, that is, pain is unavoidable, but suffering is useless. And he said, worry and fear is useless, unnecessary suffering. Well, that's kind of jaw-dropping. You mean I'm suffering when I'm worrying about my kids and so possibility, peace, good thoughts. I'm going to go to the study guide now. And you know what I'm noticing, Kathy, is that this is too small for the folks in here to read. I don't know if we can make it any bigger, but, how are you seeing that in the back? Diane, can you see it?
No, but I don't think any bigger would necessarily help.
All right,
I'll listen.
okay. So the quote I have from E.M. Forster up there at the top is, we must be willing to let go of the life we have planned so as to have the life that is waiting for us, which is pretty much what B.J. Miller said, right? As a sophomore at Princeton, he had plans for his life. He was on the crewing team and probably had great plans, and that had to shift so he could step into what was waiting for him. Any comments there? Okay. You know, we did not go around and introduce ourselves. So this will take a little bit of time, but pay attention. And we'll start with online. If you would say your name and your favorite word in the English language. One word. That should speed it up. Let's start with Sandy.
Sandy Fish, and I think my favorite word is joy.
Great. And Maya Knowles. Your name?
Maya Knowles. I would say love.
Great, thank you. Yoli. You're not unmute. There you go.
So,
Your name and your favorite word.
Yoli or Yolanda Carrier, and my favorite word is blessings, because I always want to share my blessings.
Great, thanks, Yoli. Great to see you, Yoli. Kate. Catherine. Wake up, Catherine. Unmute. There.
How about contentment?
All right. Great. Arlene, your name and your favorite word.
Arlene, and I think that Sandy and I rate my.
What was the favorite word? Did anyone hear her? Arlene, what was your favorite word?
Joy.
Oh, thank you. Great. Alva?
Achievement.
Wow, okay. Let's see, where am I? I am Lois, all the way from Washington.
My name is Lois, and my favorite word would be joy.
Great. Let's see, who else do I have? Betty, I got Betty.
No.
Betty?
No, you didn't. And my word is all what everybody else said. And then gratitude for all of the above.
Great, thank you. Howard? Your name and your favorite word.
My name is Howard and my favorite word is Susie.
You're good for another week, Howard.
Did you hear what Paul said, Howard?
I did, he's right. I've got a lot of karma to make up for, Paul.
Oh, where's Susie? Is Susie here?
No, she's gone. She
Okay.
had she's ran to a meeting.
Oh, okay. All right. Did I get everyone online? Did I miss anybody? Kathy. Like, I didn't get Kathy, but I didn't get Ken and your wife. Next time you'll have your mic, right, Ken? Kathy, your name and your favorite word.
My name is Kathy Collins, and all of those words are great. I'll add grace.
Grace, great. I love that word too. My name is Sharon, and my favorite word is free. Freedom, free. And let's start over here with Eileen.
My name is Eileen Barber, and this popped in my head when you asked. My word is possibilities.
Great.
I'm Judy, and my favorite word is create.
Yes, because she's an artist. Judy's an artist, a great artist.
Barb Layton, and I'm gonna say energy.
Barbara's favorite word is energy. I'm gonna interpret because I'm not sure everyone can hear you.
My name is Karen, and my favorite word right now is bliss.
Liz. I'm gonna go with you. Wherever you're going. Karen's favorite word is bliss, for those of you online.
Betty Jo Johnson, and my favorite word is harmony.
Harmony. Betty Jo says harmony.
I'm Carol Douglas, and kindness.
Kindness. Carol's favorite word is kindness.
Billy Martini, and mine is gratitude.
Billy's is gratitude.
Diane, and peace.
Peace. Diane says peace.
Okay, Linda, and the word is gratitude.
Aha, Linda says gratitude.
And another Linda, and my word is grace.
Linda's word is grace.
Paul, mine is contentment.
Contentment, great. Paul's word is contentment and?
Ready?
Yeah.
My name is Mort, and my favorite word is supercalifragilistic.
Mark's favorite word is supercalifragilistic. Your favorite word, I was expecting you to say golf.
We mean the same thing.
Yeah,
My name is Jane. My favorite word is serenity.
serenity. Jane's favorite word is serenity. Great. I'm gonna go to the second quote here, and it is in this book. This is the book I'm using. And it is, there is intention built into every stage of life, no less this one than any other. And I think that's important for all of us. So if you want to say something, great, but just hold that thought and see how it settles into your heart and soul. There is intention built into every stage of life, including retirement. And no less this one than any other. That the intention for this stage of life, wherever you are, is just as great as any other stage. And just as important. Just as important. Kathy, we can't really see what this says because we have this convert PDF over here on the screen. I don't know how to get rid of it, but here in the room, it's, oh, you all don't. Do you have that? Yeah, you have that block. Okay, now we lost the, oh, how nice to see big pictures of everybody. Okay, I'm gonna go, can't hear you, Kathy. I can't hear you, Kathy. Here she comes, my crack admin. So the first quote in key ideas from the chapters in this book. The first one is a quote that I found from Swami Sivananda.
I'm gonna put it
Are you
on
gonna
yours.
take over here?
No, I'm gonna put it on yours so that, because it shows better from this one, I think.
I wonder if we need it though. No, that's what I'm wondering now, because we all can't read it. Just listen. Yeah. If we can't make it real big, then we can just look, and I've got mine.
Should I just stop sharing all together?
Just leave it up.
Leave it up.
Yeah, yeah. You came without the baby.
Escape for a moment.
It is escape too. So the Swami Sivananda said, do not brood over your past mistakes and failures, as this will only fill your mind with grief, regret, and depression. Do not brood over your past mistakes and failures. What's the antidote to end or preclude brooding over past mistakes and failures? Eileen?
This is Eileen. I would say being in the moment.
Being in the moment is for sure one way. Yeah. What else?
Forgiveness.
Are you a mind reader? Forgiveness. What do we forgive, Billy?
Well, ourselves first of all. I mean, I think that's the main thing that I do, and then anyone that I'm holding the resentment over, you know.
Yeah, forgive. Just forgive. Forgive self. Because the truth is, we're always doing the best we can at any given moment. If we could do better, we would do better. Based on whatever knowledge or whatever our emotional life is, whatever the circumstances are. But as we grow spiritually, we get to forgive it. So we are actually what? Transforming our consciousness. And the forgiveness is an eraser of sorts. Or it's a transformative element. It shifts the energy from dark to light. It shifts the energy from, the word stress comes to my mind, but stronger than that. It transforms the painful energy into peace, I think. Forgiveness. So we forgive ourselves, we forgive everybody else, we forgive the circumstances. And that's where, I guess I want to say, what power, those of you who are familiar with Unity's 12 powers, what power or powers would you think would be pretty essential to have grown in to transform past mistakes and pains and hurts and losses into something useful?
Elimination, which I call letting go.
Great. Release or elimination. That is one of our 12 powers. Yes, let it go. Let it go. And forgiveness allows us to let it go. What else? What other power? Any other power come to mind? Sure. I'm Diane.
Faith.
Faith.
I don't have too many people to forgive, and so I have to forgive this next stage. And faith for me is about acknowledging and loving it, bringing it in.
Bringing it in. Yeah, well said. So faith is important, I think, in this idea of forgiving or not focusing on the past. The faith that right now is good, what will I do with it? And whatever is to come is going to be even better. Any comment?
Also love, the power of love.
Yeah.
Loving ourselves so we can love others.
Great. So Billy was saying we have to what's helpful here or essential is to love ourselves so we can love others. Great. Anybody else? Okay, I'm going on to the next one. In the key ideas, regret entices us to wish for what never was. Regret entices us to wish for what never was. Can you see how true that is? Rather than bringing new energy to what is, regret is wishing for what never was, is gone. Can't change it. Any comments there? Sure.
I had a boss that said, don't should on yourself.
Yes.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda is always takes you to a dark place.
Yes. That's a tried and true and useful adage. Did you all hear Carol online? Don't do the shoulda, woulda, coulda. That creates regret. The next one is, you know, we should have made copies of this. Hey, Kat? You know, I didn't think about that. We should have copies of this for everyone, right? Except those online. Can't have it. Number 3 is when we regret the roads that have led us to where we are, we risk the loss of the future. When we regret the roads that have led us to where we are, we risk, or we have, we risk the loss of our future. Because we're stuck, right? And we're stuck. We're stuck. Any comments there? Did you all have your breakfast? We need to pass the coffee around. I didn't want to say that. Jane.
I know that when I'm trying to sleep, which is always a chore, if I once start thinking of anything in the past, I just get up, because that, you could be there for 3 days trying to do that. But I once heard somebody make the expression related to that. Well, I didn't get much sleep last night because that was the day I was chosen to give me my life review.
So, Jane, let's see if I can remember this, Jane, so the folks online can hear. So I didn't get any sleep last night because that was the night I chose to do a life review. Exactly. Anybody online comment?
Yes, Betty. It says, when we regret the roads that have led us to where we are, we risk the loss of the future. I tend to think that no matter where we are, is as much as we dislike it sometimes, it's where we're supposed to be, and it's going to teach us something for the future. So you'd be taking out an important component of what is shaping your life, and then you go on from there. By the way, it's very hard. I know you can't do anything about it, but I couldn't understand anything those 2 previous young ladies said. So sometimes you can just repeat the important part. Okay, anyway, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Betty. I'm trying to repeat what the folks in here say. Okay, hey, Lois. Unmute Lois. There we go.
Okay, so if you do that, then you lose hope. You can drown in depression, and you won't open to the possibilities that are all around you.
Right.
You won't see them.
Right. Well said. It's because we can only focus on one thing at a time. I'm either looking at that or I'm looking at that. Take your pick. Our human eyes can't do that yet. They can't do a 360. So take your pick, right? Past or present. And no wonder, isn't it? It is no wonder that if we're focused in the past or the regrets of the past, we lose hope because we can't do anything about it, right? I used to think that I could correct the past if I just analyzed it in the present. No. I mean, it was a revelation to me. I don't know. They should teach this in schools, right? Okay, you all have, ta-da! So let's look at number 4 here in key ideas. Free of, and I left the if for you all to fill in the blank. Fear of growing old can be useful if what?
Fear is never useful. That's the other thing.
Fear is never useful. If we see that fear is never useful, right? Fear of growing old can be useful if
you take positive action to avoid whatever it is you're afraid of.
Great. Barbara said it can be useful if you take positive action to avoid or get rid of the fear of to get rid of whatever it was you were afraid of, right? Right.
If you acknowledge it, I think fear will just come up and emotions just arise. So if you acknowledge it, instead of trying to run away from it and then figure out what to do, like similar to what you said, to have a positive experience going forward.
Great, brilliant. So Carol said it can be useful if you acknowledge it, see it for what it is, and then move forward into what can be, what you really want. So do you think fear is a part of being a human being? I mean, is there anyone thinks that believes that fear is not a part of being a human being? That person, I'm going to go home with that person if there isn't. So fear is part of being a human being. It's an evolutionary fact. You know what I mean? It was survival. But now, as spiritual beings, evolving spiritually, it may still be part of what comes up because we're human beings. And we have these senses that see stuff out here that may scare us. But now we know that acknowledging it allows us to let it go. As Carol was pointing to, if I run from my fear and refuse to acknowledge it, it will not shut down. It will demonstrate itself in some way. Diane?
I was going to elaborate because I really like what you said, Carol, because I like to love my fear. Fear is fear is teaching us, you know, and I do think there's a real push always to let go of fear. And so for a lot of people, they're letting go of it so quickly that we forget that it really is like that big conference table. It's one of the feelings that's sitting at that conference table teaching us. I mean, I don't like having a lot of it, but it really, that's why I try to hug on it.
Hug on. Diane was saying, I don't know if you guys out there heard her, but saying that she loves her fear in a way, she hugs it because it's there to teach. Our fear teaches us what's going on inside of us. Mm-hmm. Our fear teaches something about who we are right now in this present moment. And invites us to look at where did that come from? And what do I want to do about it? Billy, I could see that look on your
I think
face.
it's like the little kids, you know, that pulls on your pant leg and look at me, look at me, look at me.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to look at it. What's going on with me? And this is scaring the bejesus out of me or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing in a way.
It can be if we use it right.
If we use it right.
If we use it to grow and learn about ourselves. Anything else? Anyone online want to comment there? Okay then. So here's the question. Discussion questions. Reflect on all that brought you to where you are today. Reflect on all that brought you to where you are today. Would you change anything?
Yeah.
Carol?
I would definitely be in the moment more and let go of a lot of senseless worry.
Yeah. Yeah. If only we knew then what we know now. Anybody else? Karen?
I felt the vibrations coming my way, really. Well, I think where I am right now isn't too awfully bad.
Is what?
I think where I am today is pretty good.
Is pretty good. Oh, great.
I mean, I've got difficulties and challenges and areas to grow for sure. But if I changed anything in the past, I wouldn't be where I am.
True. It's true, isn't it? Who knows? Who knows? I used to think if only I hadn't married him, I'd be happier, but.
Or the purpose was to provide a son.
But that was before I was on the spiritual path. Okay. Anyone else?
I have one comment.
Yes, Eileen?
I would learn not to complain so much when I was working because of the energy that it put out to others. The not being positive and not being in the moment with what I can do right now instead of complaining what didn't happen, you know.
Right.
Because I just realized what a negative influence I was when I did that.
Well, and what did it do for you? Eileen was talking about she would complain if there was anything she would change, it would be in her job where she complained, she would not. So what did it do to you, in you?
Well, I think at first it was a way for me to vent my anger or frustration or whatever, because there are a lot of things that, you know, we were just told you have to do it this way and not any other way. And sometimes that was from people who didn't have experience. And when you have been at your job for 30 years and you know every way there is to do certain things, that it's very hard to be told. And I think all of us feel this way sometimes. It's hard to be told what to do and how to do it when you have good experience and good skills and so forth. And so sometimes I would be venting those because it's like, well, hey, I've been doing this for a long time. I know what I'm doing. And so I would learn to bring that back here instead of out there.
So I mean, yes and no. I mean, I want to offer this, yes and no. Because that what you saw, I'm going to just invite this now. What you saw was something that was unworkable. They were asking you to do something that you knew was unworkable or not as good as another way that you knew. And so if you were to reframe that of I would change and not have complained, what if you were to reframe that? How might you look at it? If you came around to the other side and looked at that, what might you see in a positive way?
That's kind of hard. I might see that I do have good ideas and that I should share those when I feel so strongly about them, but not complain about somebody else. Bring it back to me and say, I can help do this better because I've done it a lot of times, and share those things and how, you know, we might better do certain procedures or whatever.
Yeah, excellent. So I'm trying to remember, so we would turn a complaint into a request, right? How about this? How about this? You know, that's a pretty good adage for life today, right? for today, rather than complaining about it, especially to someone who can't do anything about it, right? To say, I have an idea here. You know, how about this? Can we try this? Even though they might have said no, at least.
Well, and that allows us to become part of the solution and start instead of the problem.
Yeah.
It just flips it around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I think it's important to remember, because I've been in those situations that you have no control over how the other person receives that. You can say it in a very helpful way, but I've had bosses who've been threatened by me having an idea, and eventually I've had to leave that job.
Yeah.
Because of that other person's inability to, you know, have someone else have other ideas than theirs. But that's not anything I can do anything about. I have to just deal with that.
Yes. I remember one of my spiritual mentors would say, you've only got 3 choices in life. You can change it. If you can't change it, change you. If you can't change you, then you gotta go.
Change your circumstances, yeah.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah. Betty? That's to you, Lois.
I'm in a discussion group, and now it might not work the same way with your boss, because that's a different kind of personal interaction. But when somebody says something that I don't agree with, instead of saying yes, but, which seems to indicate that they've made a mistake, I say, on the other hand, and that gives respect to what they've said. But on the other hand, I have something to say too. So sometimes that will work.
And what do you experience when you say, on the other hand, rather than yes, but? What do you experience?
Well, I feel that I'm giving respect to what they've said. If I say yes, but, I'm virtually saying yes, but you're wrong and I'm right. Where when I say on the other hand, there's 2 sides to that question.
Great, thank you. Yeah. Lois?
Okay, what I would regret the most, what I would regret is the negative self-talk. Yeah, that's the main thing. And that I didn't recognize it.
Right.
So I would have regret that I didn't recognize it. And so therefore, that's a priority for me now, to try to recognize it and switch.
Beautiful. So that's a comment on use it to grow. You know, use whatever you would have done, whatever you did in the past that you didn't like. Use it to grow today. Well, then how do I want to be today, now in my life, rather than negative self-talk? Positive self-talk, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, it's like, what conversations do we need to stop having with ourselves that aren't helpful? And what conversation, because there's always, often there's a conversation going on in here, right? And some are helpful, some aren't. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to the next one. I think I'm going to jump to number 4. Let's look together at number 4. If you have any fears that you recognize, what would you do if you didn't have them? Diane?
Does anybody else want to talk first? This is it's powerful stuff. It's good stuff. Well, if I didn't have fears, I would have to let go of all my Catholic stuff that says that you're supposed to have a very painful, suffering type life. And I would just have immense joy.
Yeah.
All the time.
Amen.
And that's a scary thought, so I know that completely.
Amen. Did you online hear her? What Carol said, she said, if she would let go of all of her Catholic indoctrination that kept her somewhat fearful, that was fearful kind of indoctrination, let it go so she could be fully joyful right now.
All the time.
And it's very hard to do in the last stage of life, right before heaven and hell.
Yeah.
My brain is going all haywire. We've had lots of discussions on it. We have, I haven't answered it yet. I'm passionate for myself.
Why don't you move that discussion group up this way a little bit?
What did you say, Karen?
Well, they have a discussion group, but it's a long way away. I said, why don't you move it up this way a little bit? The discussion group.
Oh, about what?
Everything good.
Everything good. Okay, well, we're having a discussion right now about everything good.
Including you.
Yes. Well said, Gilbert. Well said. Anyone online want to comment on number 4? What would you do if you weren't afraid? How, frame it that way. What would you do if you weren't afraid? If there's anything you're afraid of right now.
We're too afraid to tell you.
Maya was raising her hand, but you have to unmute Maya.
Okay. One of the things for me, going into my second year of being a widow and being new to this area for that long during COVID, is there's a lot of fear about how to get back into whoever it is I'm going to be now as this person alone. And so what I found lately has been helping. For instance, I felt like I just needed to go somewhere different and kind of get away from looking after my mom and just see what it was like. So I just took out a piece of paper and started writing down what scares me about traveling. And then looking at, okay, how can I accommodate that? Like, what kind of place would I want to stay? Like, would I rather stay in a hotel than an Airbnb? And what kinds of, like, do I need to control the food that I'm going to be, places I'm going to be eating out? And so just like writing down, why am I afraid to try going out there on my own? What scares me? Like being alone, being in a parking lot somewhere without anybody with me. So I just wrote those things down and figured out how I could travel in a way that would solve those problems, and scheduled, my first trip and went out and did it. And that seemed to help. Of course, it was a total disaster because my car broke down during my way to Sedona. And so that created like another whole set of fears I didn't plan on, but I made it through okay. And so I think sometimes just writing down, okay, what is this fearful side of me trying to say? And then looking at, well, how can I take care of you and make you want to get out of this place after 14 months and just go out and do something fun? You can do it. You can do it.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. So you did get to Sedona, right?
I finally got there, yeah.
Great, great. Yeah. Fears can be itty bitty or really big. Itty bitty. Itty bitty can be, have you ever walked down the street and you want to say hi to someone, but they won't look your way? They're pretending like no one's there. That's one little thing I used to do to get over my own fears. And I just say hi anyway. Just say hi anyway. I mean, that's a little bitty thing, isn't it? But it can be such a stopper for bigger things. It's like this. If we don't take care of the little things, guess what? They get bigger. They get bigger.
Carol, one fear I realize I've had is fear of saying the wrong thing and, just doing the right thing. And I'm learning that it's more important just to listen, like with my son or my husband, and just learn. And I don't have to always say something.
Great.
I can just be supportive or kind or compassionate. I don't even have to agree with what they're saying because they're individuals, they have their own life, and they can be led by God as well.
Great, great. So Carol was talking about discerning when to say something and when to just listen and be supportive, right? Great. Anything else? Yes, thank you.
I think sometimes too, when we're experiencing fear, we're living in the past. And also if we're worried or anxious, we're looking down the future.
Yeah.
But if we live in the now moment, we can experience the presence of joy and harmony. And the truth of who you spiritually are.
That has been a theme today, hasn't it? Because I've heard it a few times here, the importance of living in the moment, being 100% present to the best of our ability right now. Great. Anybody else?
I was just going to make one comment. I think I might be one of the younger people in here. I'm not quite sure, but it's been a couple of years now since I retired. And I think my greatest fear of retiring was, number one, am I going to have enough money? But number two, what am I going to do? And who am I without this title that I have? And how long I've had this title and how long I've been doing all these things I've been doing. And now what am I going to do with myself? And so it's been quite a journey. Thank goodness for Unity to help me meet people, first of all, and then secondly, to have some focus of what is important and what for me to focus on to be a better person and have a higher quality of life.
And what have you discovered, Eileen?
I've discovered that it's worth it to drive from Chandler to Sun City. I've discovered that I had a lot of good upbringing with my religious beliefs, and it has brought them much more into focus and much more to the forefront to share with others, and especially to be much more positive.
Great.
Because I have the blood type B positive, and so I use that all the time to remind myself, you came here with B positive, and so be positive.
Good job. Yes, and I mean, we haven't, all of us talked personally and told our story about what we do, what's fun for us, what skills do we bring to life in this day. But I would love to know it. So one thing I do know about Eileen is she's a great cook. So whenever we're having a party, we'll.
Well, you don't really know that yet. That's a thought that you've had.
Well, Judy said you were, yes.
Yeah, but you personally haven't experienced it.
I have. And Judy's taste might be different than mine, but I doubt. I doubt.
But I do like to cook. It's something that, you can share of.
That you share.
Yeah, that I like to share.
She cooks for her neighbors.
I just cook, and if I have a lot, then somebody else has to eat it because I don't want to have it every day and day in, day out.
She does not cook in small batches.
I can't, because I grew up in a family with 7 children. So, I mean, not my children, but I was one of 7. And so, when I watched my mom cook, it was in a big pot.
Very cool. Karen, were you going to say something?
Yes, if you don't mind. I've been having a lot of pain, and it led to some depression. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I got a message from someplace that we all get messages from, I have admired Betty Jo for a long time. And she's a person that grew up in Unity Church, and there aren't very many that I've met, you know, that grew up in Unity Church, and I used to love what she'd talk, and I go, oh my God. So it just occurred to me, she needs to write a church. And so I text her, and she answered very positively. Suddenly, I was really feeling joyous about what was to come.
Oh.
You know, about going and getting her and getting together with her again.
Oh.
Very nice. So what am I trying to say? It changed my outlook.
Yes.
Joy.
It changed your outlook because you took action.
And I was feeling joy also. But I think love is reflected in love.
Well said. Love is reflective of love.
Every time she opens her mouth, it's awesome.
Oh, that's great. Okay, we're going to close with a prayer. But just take a moment, you guys online also, take a moment and at least anchor in your mind and heart right now a takeaway for you today. Did you hear something that you can take into the rest of your day that would be helpful, enhance the day or the days ahead? Just kind of, if there was something, anchor that now so you don't forget it. And then if you look on your sheet, you'll see that I have 2 suggestions for the week. One is to make a list of what lights you up. Just write it down, what lights you up. And then do one of those things this week. Do one of those things that lights you up. Okay, let's pray out. So close your eyes and take a deep breath. The grace of God now fills our minds and hearts. The grace of God as the presence of God, as the light of God, as the goodness and love of God fills our minds and hearts and every cell and atom of our being. The light and love of God that lives and breathes as us is blessing us now and throughout this day. And so we thank you, God, for your light and presence in each of us. We rejoice in the blessings of life today, right here, right now. And we take this light of blessing into our day, blessing our world. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Thank you all. I'll see you guys same time, same station.
I had a pen, you guys over there. I had a pen that I put in the basket that